All right.
Or is there something you have to do?
Well, the Google Forms there, I just have to, what I generally download in all of your statements, and then I have to link it to the. I can't. Some of them need like graphic. No, I don't use that. Like I just like pictures on from there. So I was gonna put for each one what I could do.
Well, I mean,
We know. Do I want to add a photo in the form? But if it was, no. Yeah, but if it, because then we do like that. It was going to show me yeah, you know, it's like meant to be easy.
Yeah, no, that's totally fine.
try not to scare them.
I didn't see it. I don't even have it. It's scary. It's too big. Like, that's fun. It's good. I guess.
My picture in here?
I guess I'll need to drive.
Okay. Did I have a clicker?
Yeah, we can just get clicker if you want.
We'd love a clicker.
You want a clicker?
Wow. That'd be great.
Are you going to page?
Am I going to paste it? Are you going to paste it?
That'd be so inspiring.
I'm going to.
Nobody at home can see us, right? Or did they put us on mute?
Oh my gosh. She's so mean to me, but I'm still trying to help her win.
Yeah, okay. We are, that way we can,
Nobody else ran
you can run the show.
This is y'all's thing. I'm not going to be.
Nobody else ran the president.
It was well done. Yeah.
You can make fun if you want. So you're going to be the president.
What up? Wait, what was the?
Who's doing what?
11? Where is it?
Yeah, guys.
Somewhere in the
You usually
Can you take out that?
Yeah, that needs to.
Take that out. Take that
How do I,
out.
oh, you want me to?
do it. I'm going to do it.
First, I'm
That was one of the-
I know, that's just, you just because it's the last minute. Nobody.
You already
Well,
did.
Oh, I don't think I can.
Okay, that's fine.
We will just kind of, it's the survey of the seven.
Well, I think that's not.
Okay, sorry, you can put it in whenever you like.
A traditional,
Right in the middle of
so like
everything.
creating new types of positions.
So we're just going to do it every
all
couple of days.
time.
That's how I plan on it. You start right here. There's other conversations. Because all we got graduated. Yeah, all we got is.
Let's do it survey the field. We want it to be minimize the.
Well, I can do that. You always have fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. We'll all paste it.
Okay. Okay.
Since you're standing up there already.
That's not the application I wanted to share. So let's try that again.
Lisa, I don't think we're going to turn on the camera for this one, and just because the camera we have isn't that great, so everyone's kind of blurry, unless those people online really want a camera.
Okay, we're back. Okay. I think so. Okay. Cool. We've got people kind of coming in. It is time. It's noon exactly. No need for camera. PowerPoint should be fine. Sorry, nobody wants to see our phone. I completely understand. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started since it's noon, and I'm going to introduce everybody. I guess I get to run the clicker because I was right. You're going to pry it from my cold dead hand. I'm Jennifer Musco, manuscript archivist over at Jackson Library. And let's see, my esteemed colleague Mike Crumpton, who is the Assistant Dean for Administrative Services. Sorry, I never remember exactly what your title is. And Kathleen has finally gotten a shortened title, Kathleen McCarty-Smith, who is our Outreach and Instruction Archivist, and Keith Gorman, who is Assistant Dean for Special Collections and University Archives. So we're going to talk to you today about resumes, about cover letters, about interviews, and from all perspectives, public libraries, academic libraries, school, media, libraries, and above. Yeah. I did it. So basically the outline, we're going to talk a little bit about the field, deciding where you want to work, hunting for jobs, applying, which involves cover letters, your CV or resume, references, a little bit about interviewing, and then marketing yourself. So, and if anybody has questions along the way, you guys are monitoring chat in the back, and then anybody here, please just out loud or via chat.
I've got a quick question for you all. So we're going to be talking a lot. There should be a lot of interaction. But so have people been writing cover letters and resume CVs? Okay.
The first few, it's the last
First few.
really quickly.
It's good to have a start, right? You got to start
Okay.
And we
somewhere.
got a lot of these in our hot little hands, so we'll talk about that later.
We're going to talk about that later. But how are people working off of their resume or CV? Are you looking at a template online?
How did you
friends?
I got
Looking at from other
Google
colleagues?
things.
I'm sorry?
Google.
Google? Okay.
I've got mine everything.
Yeah.
From a friend.
Okay. Okay.
Kind of looking at a variety of different ones you find online.
Sure. Are you finding library ones online or just more general?
More general.
Okay.
Hack Library School has a lot of, a lot of resources about, there's one link that, I think I shared it on our, page earlier today, and it's like, it has a link to all these successful cover letters that, people were hired from that cover letter.
For library.
Yeah.
Great.
You know,
Great.
we were talking about this earlier. It really might be a good idea for LISSA to have a resource page with it, because I think people are being led astray by some of these other templates that are just online.
Right, because Google's very general,
Right.
and it could be for a marketing position, or it could be for, something that doesn't relate to our field, and there's we're going to talk about it, but kind of more specific ways to organize your resume for library
So you
jobs.
also have templates like that. You could have resources for crawlers, and there's a lot of things that you could have on a LISSA page I think could kind of give a leg up. So
You got a lot of alumni that might be willing to share, let you post theirs as an example.
or we could post internships there, certain things that come through the listservs that maybe y'all don't get. I don't know. Just think about it. It might be a good resource.
A good website, it's a good website, and what's the interview like that? Wiki.
Cool. All right.
So that was our question. So where are we going from here?
Mike's going to talk about
Oh, perfect.
Well, actually, the same kind of question. Are you looking at postings currently?
Yeah.
And not just the ones you're interested in, but kind of look at postings overall to look at how different organizations are putting together the job description and posting for the needs. And I think you'll see trends and kind of looking at different things, gather an idea of what types of things people are looking for. There's a lot of investment in putting together a job description and a posting. So when you're looking at that, if they're looking for something in particular and they're putting that in there, take that seriously. And if you don't have that exact experience, there's other ways to kind of work your way into it, but you need to be kind of paying attention to what they're putting out there because they've invested time and effort into doing that. And we're going to talk about trends a little bit, and one trend that I've seen is that the traditional positions that we're used to are changing. So libraries, and this is academic and public in particular, are creating new types of positions, meaning they're pulling into those job descriptions skills and knowledge and abilities into those job descriptions that are a little bit non-traditional, but it's what they've identified within the organization as a need.
And it usually spreads throughout the field. Like, for example, my position is an instruction and outreach archivist. So I've been working a lot at the archives for a while, but I'm just in this new position. And about the time, he can tell you, about the time that my job was posted, it was everywhere. It was the new hot title, and it just kind of spreads throughout. So sometimes that happens. If you can be on the cutting edge of that, sometimes it's helpful as well. So you can market yourself.
So it's really important to kind of do the environmental scan before you're even going onto the job market to see what's going on in terms of trends and where you're positioning yourself. Yes?
We have a question online from Darlena. I looked at a posting this morning from the State Library of North Carolina's website, and there's a wide variety of jobs that I was wondering how you apply yourself to be able to fit a wide variety of job descriptions, because I've been told that you mostly learn your job on the job as a new librarian.
I think it's really about addressing skills and skill sets, and maybe not necessarily specific things, activities that you would learn on the job, but like, you know, customer service and what else do I want to add to that as far as specific skills? Your attention to detail and
Working in a team.
and
some of the soft skills about being able to coach and mentor people. And back to the question about broad postings, you want to look at postings to get a kind of an environmental scan of what's out there. But when you're really, and we'll get into this more, but when you're starting to apply for specific positions, that's when you want to customize.
Right.
You want to customize yourself to those positions. And you might not have an exact matchup, but you want to demonstrate how you get close to that matchup and then what you would do to compensate for the gap.
And it becomes very obvious if people are fishing. So if you've got a lot of resumes and they don't look tailored, they just look very general, it looks exactly like that. So spend the extra time to tailor it, customize it, both your cover letter and your resume. We'll get to that a little bit. Okay. I just want to ask a quick question. So how many of y'all are graduating this May? Okay. Because it's always good to think about this. Gay for y'all who are here early too. It's really important to, you know, because it's not a month before graduation that you want to hear how exactly you need to be lining up. You know. All right. Cool.
where do you guys want to work? What are you guys? What areas are you all interested in? All right. School library. Public. Okay.
Public and services.
Okay.
Special collections.
Okay. Excellent. Academic. Okay. That's great. And like we were talking about as far as like, you know, looking at all these different job postings and getting an idea of skill sets, but yet really focusing on your area and then tailoring everything that you have towards these positions. What else do you want to say?
Well, all of these job types are going to have some kind of organization surrounding it. So I think if you just did a little Googling around and like just, let's just say you were interested in historic museum collections, you could find an organization that's supporting that. So that's where you start your networking to learn more and more. And if they have a job posting, just kind of pay attention to what they're putting out there that you might be interested in down the road. And even if you're not getting ready to graduate, it's good to start seeing the trends that are out there and being posted, you know, early on.
I would say if you're going for your first job, though, and you've got a specific niche that you're thinking about, and if you're not willing, depends on your life, right? If you're willing to up stakes and go somewhere, but if you're staying sort of in, you know, in the location, you may need to be a little more flexible in what you're looking to do for that first job. It doesn't necessarily mean you're going to be then trapped throughout your entire career if you take that job, but you'll have to, you know, think about what your second job's going to be.
And also, y'all are graduating as information specialists. So, and that's really part of the degree. It was kind of a cool part of getting an LIS. And so, you know, you might want to consider what is available outside the library field. I mean, you know, don't just limit yourself. If you might have the interest in something else. Now, it may be hard, again, the whole discussion of then do you go back into libraries. That's something that's another discussion, but don't limit yourself to just libraries.
We have two comments online.
Mm-hmm.
One from Stacy. Any special tips for mid-career people who have extensive experience in other fields and who might not be attractive to employers due to age, fears about an older worker's salary, expectations being too high, etc. Do you want to address that question first, and we'll go to the second one?
Oh, I don't believe in people being attractive or unattractive after a certain age.
I don't know. You're not there yet.
I mean,
Since this is my third career, I'm not sure you want to start thinking like that. I mean, there's also federal regulations. So clearly there can be stereotypes how people are going to hire. There's issues, but I would think if you're going to do a mid-career change, you actually want to be thinking about what skills and strengths you could bring to that position. I would be marketing that and positioning yourself that way. You shouldn't be shying away from that. There's a maturity. A lot of organizations want people who are going to come in, be a stable presence, bring a lot of life experience, depending on the job. So sure, there's also, they always call it fit. So some people are going to be a little worried maybe about an older staff member coming in, but actually, I think it adds to the team.
I agree, and what's important, I think, in that conversation is you demonstrate how you can transition your experience into the needs of the organization. That's the key there.
yeah, you've developed skills, and while they're not particularly in a library, those are skills that can be applied to a library job, and it's just a matter of writing your resume and your cover letter to focus on that.
So this happened to me. I mean, I've only been in this field for like 10 years now or so. And so I went back to school, and I was worried about exactly this thing. And but as everybody said, you can transition your skills. For example, I had been a paralegal in a former life. Well, that gave me incredible organizational skills. I mean, that really helped. I had taught as well on a college level. That really helped. So kind of getting a narrative together that pulls together all these things. And again, customize it toward this is why I would really be great in this job, because I do have a lot more experience, and I've got the skills, I've got the organization, I've got the same skills you need, and I'm deep in them. So don't be worried about that. I think it's a plus.
We also had Joy, who commented, my current job and resume are based off the paraprofessional positions I've do have. How do I convert that when I'm ready to start looking for a professional position? How do I convert those when I'm ready to start looking for a professional position?
How does she convert her
Paraprofessional
her CV or resume? We'll talk about that in a little bit. Sometimes it depends on where you apply. So we'll get to that.
And your choice of perspective.
Okay. Where are you looking for these jobs? I think that's something, and these are a couple of places to start locally. As far as, NCLA, the state library has lists, ALA has job lists. There's a couple, like web crawlers like Indeed pull in jobs around, they search out specific terms and pull them in. Going to professional conferences, word of mouth. Who do you know? People will tell you if there are jobs open. If you are go to either conferences or your teachers or librarians like us. And then, of course, if you can be an archivist, some archivist positions out there as well.
And if you're not in North Carolina, each state should have a job board of some form. So, because most state associations are chapters of ALA, and that's just part of the setup. So NCLA has a job posting board, but if you're not in North Carolina, you should be able to find your state's association with a related employment posting.
Does NCSOMA do the same thing? I haven't
seen it.
Okay. I haven't looked, but
and some of their postings end up on NCLA website.
If you're on listservs, they'll just send job postings through.
Okay. All right. We're going to start talking about cover letters. We already mentioned this a little bit, customizing for each job, talking about why you are interested in that particular position and that organization, right? I want to work at your library because I think your library does really interesting things, or your school has great programs. And then speak specifically to the qualifications they list. There should be bullet points of the things that they want, and it's like attention to detail, or effective oral and written communication skills and things like that. Speak specifically to them. Have someone read it, because spelling is can be a big problem. And don't make them too long, 1 to 2 pages. We did receive a manifesto at one point, and I think it was like 9-page cover letter, and it lost me in the middle of like philosophy of why they wanted to be a librarian. And then it should address, again, those specific skills that you have, and again, include only relevant information.
So you got to really think about your cover letter as really kind of the pre-interview, and you have to really market yourself to it, because if you're looking at a job posting, many times the job posting is put together by not one person, but it could be a committee, and if there's sometimes some political haggling sometimes with jobs, but you have to speak to what they're asking. You can't dismiss it, because if you're not talking to exactly what they're asking you, you're not going to really be sort of taken seriously. You have to really address what they're asking you to do.
I think the other thing I would say is in those first couple of points, don't hide behind generalities or vagueness. If you're saying I want to work there because you're a great organization, why? What makes it great? You know, I really like the things you're doing. What things? Okay, that doesn't mean get all wordy and stuff like that, but just focus it on, you know, I like the way you guys, you know, provide instruction, or you know, I like the digital services, that kind of thing. But it's a hook, and it separates you from the people who are being general and vague about those kind of things.
So basically, get the job posting, put it next to your cover letter. Make sure that every single point is reflected in your cover letter and your CV/resume. And there's no excuse not to do that.
Yeah.
And really, because there's some people, when you're on a search committee, I think some people really look at the resumes, some people are really cover letter people, some people look at both. So don't think you're being repetitive with your resume. It's not a competition thing. It's completely different. The cover letter is your own personal narrative. It explains a lot about you, about your experience. It's your chance to pull your resume together. And contextualize it with the job. So it really isn't anything to be scared of, but it's your big chance. And so sometimes I think people don't really spend as much time as they need to. They think it's almost a cover letter to the real big thing, which is your resume. But the cover letter is really a statement piece.
And some organizations, especially like government organizations, will use a sort of search software, and if you're not hitting on these particular points that are mentioned in the job description, HR will weed you out before you even get to a committee or librarian.
It happens in public libraries a lot. I kind of experienced that last year when we were getting ready to open the Forsyth County Public Library, and they were hiring in some new positions, which was great, but they were hiring it through the county. And I actually talked to several people about this, and the county system weeds out certain things within resumes. So there were some applications for people applying at Forsyth County that didn't even make it to the library because the county weeded it out. So you got to be real careful about that.
You had a question?
Yeah, just for a lot of school library jobs, there's just one generic job description that's like 4 pages long that includes everything. But what I've learned is that school library jobs are different depending on whatever school you're at. Some may want, these 10 things, and another is completely different. How would you go about figuring out what is it that this school wants as a school librarian?
I think I would look at, their website and their programming and see what they seem to focus on, what they say is important to them. And then I would address your cover letter and your resume really to those points, because that's what they really mean.
If possible, talk to someone that works there who maybe have been in the faculty meetings and heard, some of the philosophy of the organization. That might help.
So cold calling, if you don't know anybody that works at the school, would you recommend just a cold email to somebody saying?
I don't know if an email is the best way to do that. If it does have to be a cold call, it would almost be better to figure out a way to meet someone in person. I know that's easier said than done, but an email is just going to get kind of pushed aside potentially.
I'm moving out of state, and where I've been applying in Maryland, their school systems, they just open like a pool of applicants for every district, and then specific schools don't post their openings until like June. So like I've been having to put in applications just generally for the district for school library positions K-12. But they still ask you to upload a resume or your job experience and a cover letter.
Are they doing a round robin? Is that?
Yes, it's really hard to figure out how to tailor that cover letter without knowing what school you even would potentially ever be applying for. Because you don't know until June whether you get to pick specific schools, but then you would follow up with principals, or they might contact you once they have an opening.
So is that general? I would concentrate on your experience.
In your skills.
And your skills.
Yeah, push out the skills.
You know.
And the round robin, that is that kind of format where they have a pool, and then the different hiring people are looking through this pool and arm wrestling each other for the best candidates. So.
So make sure you put your best foot forward and just have a very neat, clear resume. That because if they're going through it like that, you want to stand out for good reasons.
And speaking of standing out for good reasons, these are some mistakes that we find a lot in cover letters. Not proofreading. I mean, just errors are telling me that you don't have good written communication skills. And not, like we've been saying, tailoring it to the specific position. We can tell that you're just taking out the name of this institution and plugging in the name of the next institution. Yeah. And again, meeting the position requirements. Do we talk? Oh, unaccounted gaps in employment and not providing requested information. So not getting in all of the, if they ask for references or some ask for transcripts and things like that, making sure you get all of that in.
With the gaps, I'll broaden that to be questions, because your cover letter is your opportunity to, if there is, look at your resume or your CV from a hiring perspective. Would I hire me? Kind of deal. And then anything that might be a question that you know the answer to, find a way to communicate that. If there's a gap in employment, there's a way to subtly say, I had a sick parent or a child or something like that going on. That way they're not guessing. Okay, that's the point. And from an HR perspective, you don't have to disclose stuff like that. But from a consideration point of view, you don't want to leave a hiring manager with a bunch of questions that they'll just pass you by and go to someone that there are no questions. It's easier for them.
I want to go back to your thing about these general pools. What you can do in a cover letter, though, is express your, you may know what the job posting is, but you can express your enthusiasm for the field, why you're attracted to that field and that position in general. I think that is really saying a lot about you. That is something that will cover all bases, but it'll also reach out to people. Because when you're on a search committee, which we're on a lot of, you want that hook. You want that. She seems really sincere, or I get that. That is her story. That is why she's in this field. And I think that having a hook in a cover letter is a good idea.
But be professional. We were talking about this at lunch. I had somebody address some very strange personal things, like that they were a connoisseur of chocolate milk and pencils.
Not this group.
No.
This is a while ago.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
This was in the library.
Yeah, no. It was a long, but it was, including things like that have no relevance to a position and are just weird oddities that don't need to be in there, and they're taking up space from you saying things that really apply to jobs and really
or being kooky.
Yeah, right.
Like we were talking about, it's not really the play. You want it's really your personality, but you don't want a kookiness. And we were talking about once that we've seen that even if you're Googling cover letters and resumes, they'll lead you astray with in kind of. Instead of getting the hook, just saying something like, you'll always remember the day that you saw my resume first. You're like, oh, I'll remember it, all right.
Yeah, I'll remember it, but not in a good way.
So, kookiness this is not necessarily the place for that. You want let your experience speak for itself.
Okay. All right. Okay. So things to put in your cover letter. Identify the position that you're applying for, that you have skills, knowledge, fit, enthusiasm. Express your enthusiasm for this job. And we talked about also mentioning, why you're interested in this particular institution because they have these, particular goals or programs that you are interested in being involved with. Talk about your education and the skills. If maybe you haven't worked in the field or have only done like maybe volunteer experience, but you have picked up skills in your classes that apply. And let's see, those key requirements to the job description, and close with why, that again, your enthusiasm for the position and that your skills really fit, right?
Well, I would add to that, when you speak about the coursework you've done in the program, what you want to pull out of it, you don't want to list courses and things like that because that doesn't mean anything to them, but you want to pull out relevant experiences with the practicums, internships, or even assignments that got you out into the field. Those are the kind of things that kind of stand out. Mm-hmm. And so even if you said something like in my LIS 650 course, which is management administration, one of the assignments was to go talk to a librarian, and I talked and blah, 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 blah. So that means more than just saying I took LIS 650.
Right. This is true with technical skills. I know when I got out of school, one thing I did, I made sure I talked to my professors or looked back over my classes and made sure I listed everything I learned in class, because that counts as well too.
Yeah.
A question from Stacy. Any recommendations regarding how to best incorporate volunteer experience into the resume?
Volunteer experience can be very significant, and what you want to make sure you're pulling out of that is what skills did you learn by doing it. Mm-hmm. Not just that you did it, but what did you learn doing it. Mm-hmm. I think that would be the key. Would you guys agree?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think if it's relevant, you should definitely be, and especially if you don't have a lot of experience and you've been volunteering at other libraries, I think that would be a core thing. Yeah. Hands-on experience. The other thing you could say is you've also been working in different institutional cultures, so you can understand how you're working with different types of people at different levels. That I think that's a huge thing.
Volunteer experience really is it is significant, and sometimes that's the only way that you're able to get some experience because there are limited positions out there, and we recognize that in the field. I mean, that it is hard, especially when you're in school, to get something that's going to contribute significantly. So that is important.
And it's also a good way to keep your hand in with, like, for example, say you really like archives, but the job that was available and that you could get that you were interviewing for was in a public library scenario, but you're still interested in archives. You don't want to lose that. So volunteer in the archives. So you're still kind of in the field, in that little niche of the field. That's a good way to do volunteering too, because that counts. And it's one thing if you see on the resumes, if somebody wants somebody with experience for 5+ years in the field, that's hard. But if they're willing to hire somebody right out of school, that volunteer experience will really count.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So talk about cover letter. Oh. Where did it go? Oh, okay.
We did that.
We did that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this is an example job posting, or part of one, with the required qualifications and preferred qualifications. Happened to be the job that I just applied for 5 years ago and got here at the university. But, almost every job posting for a professional library position is asking for an ALA accredited degree, so we're going to talk about that when it comes to your CV. Make sure you're mentioning that you have this degree because that is required. And then they talk about other things about minimal experience, knowledge of issues and trends, again, that excellent oral and written communication, and then ability to work effectively with scholars and donors. So these are all things that have to be addressed in the cover letter. Have to be. And then any preferred qualifications would be awesome if you can reach those. But that's not, you're not necessarily going to have every one of these specifically, but to find ways to address that. What else is there to add? Anything?
We talked about this again, the required, the search committee has thought about this, the library administration has thought about these are your core requirements. You have to address these. But I think in crafting that letter, I would, either go to their website, look at what their programmings are, see what they're actually talking about that's related to what you may be doing, and then pull from that and pull it into your letter. Show that you're not just enthusiastic and excited, you're actually very interested in the institution, you've done your homework. It shows that you at least have a basic level of understanding of that organization. Shows that you've done some homework.
That is so important, both in this initial contact with the cover letter and also the telephone interview. There's so many people that you can just tell they have not looked at, they have not bothered to look at your website, and it's so obvious. and we're excited about where we work. We really like it, and so if you express any enthusiasm at all, that's a plus.
The comment of demonstratability, there is an expectation that there's going to be something answering that question. So what is your demonstratability to do this, that, and the other? It doesn't have to be, once again, something lengthy or long, but it has to be something specific. And this is demonstratability to work specifically
with donors and scholars.
So that could just simply be a sentence, interacting with faculty over use of primary resources or something like that, but that's the demonstratability, and they are looking for that.
And don't second guess your search committee in the sense that, donors or faculty can be a little squishy. It doesn't mean that you have to go out and recruit big money, when last summer at the Hamptons. It's just that they want to show that you have this in mind, that you've worked with someone who it could be fundraising at the elementary school level. It could be anything. So don't second guess that it has to be some lofty type of thing.
Right.
Your whole point is to how do you fit with these? Well, you may have had this experience. So again, don't second guess. Put it out there.
They just want to know you're not afraid to talk to faculty, or you're not afraid to engage with donors or some kind of fundraising activity. It doesn't have to be, like Kathleen's saying, monumental. It just has to be the evidence that you're comfortable with it and could grow into it more, if that's what the job's going to be.
Or demonstrated ability to work effectively with school-age children. I've, volunteered at my child's library, and so I have worked, some form of that, and making sure that you're listening to that. Volunteering at, even your child's events or things like that means that you know how to work with little people in some manner. So here's some wonderful excerpts from this, and I talk about
Cover letter.
Yeah. From my cover letter.
Especially parts of Jennifer's cover letter.
Yeah, exactly. I reread it and I think, but I start out by talking about a little bit about the position, and that I have the skills and education. I want to be hired. I'm involved with one of the things they mentioned was digital and managing and preserving archival collections. And a specific thing I did around that, which shows that I have some, leadership skills. I have some troubleshooting skills. I can work with digital materials. Personnel management was one of the things, and project management. I can barely read this. Sorry. And then some very specific things that I did. I developed a practicum. And implemented practicum for graduate and undergraduate students. And then again, I'm thrilled about this. I want to talk to you about my qualifications. Let me know if you need other information, et cetera, et cetera. Okay? That was it about cover letters. Are there other questions about cover letters before we move on? We've covered it so in depth now. All right.
Just think of a cover letter. You guys go fishing? You guys go fishing? Do they fish? Cover letter is throwing out your hook, okay? So with a worm on it.
Good bait.
And what you don't do is you don't throw a whole bunch of more worms out there. You want a good worm that's going to snag something, and then you move into this kind of thing.
So some things to think about with your CV and resume. What's the difference on when to send which? I think oftentimes they ask for a resume, I don't know if we even sometimes ask for a resume, but what we're really asking for is a CV. and I don't
You
know.
want to talk about the difference?
Yeah, resumes tend to be a one-page, very kind of succinct jobs and maybe a few skills within them, and CVs are lengthy, not too lengthy, hopefully, documents that include any research activities, other technical skills, languages, professional involvement, service.
Yeah, resumes are meant to be your work experience,
Yeah.
and the CV is meant to be your scholarly activities and or professional activities included in that.
So all academic positions are going to basically require a CV,
Yeah.
just right off the bat. That's just the way it is. And then if you have any questions, sometimes you can ask if you want to, some people are, and they'll tell you, we want a one-page resume, or maybe a two-page resume. And if you're not clear, try to be clear on that because it can make a difference. But don't just make your letters small. Don't make your font smaller. It doesn't really count.
Like everything's on one page.
To get it all on one page is like.
It is okay to call HR departments. We were talking about Forsyth County. It's okay to call an HR department and ask them, specific questions in terms of length of documents or how the system works and things like that. You're usually talking to someone in the HR department, not necessarily hiring people, so they can give you some tips on what their system is looking for.
And what they're calling a resume and how long they really want it to be.
One question about links. Like, how do you feel about links and resumes to like LinkedIn, something like that? Because I have done this before.
I put links in mine, but I put the actual link and not a hot link to a word, because that can be a problem when it comes to people print it out or it gets to them only in a print format. So it's like, well, go to my cool page, but I have no way of getting to that. Like Kathleen printed out someone's CV for me to read, and it's like, go to my page, and I'm like, well, I can't because Kathleen had the original and I don't have that. But I would be judicious in what you link to. What are your?
Well, I think it's a good question, and I wouldn't be opposed to a link, but you don't want to just put a link without a explanation of what it is. And to Jennifer's point, you want the actual link so they can type it if they have to, but you want to explain that this is kind of supplemental to what you're talking about. I've written these articles. Here's a link to a library of them if you're interested in looking at it.
So if it's something we wrote, if it's an article, or if it's a really well-written blog, and it's going to really contribute to a decision-making, for example, if one of the things that the search committee really is asking for is somebody who has writing experience, you could link out and say, look, I'm a good writer, and I've got experience, and this is an example of one of my. But just to link out because you can, it's not necessarily a good idea. And as far as linking out to personal websites, I think you've got to be really careful with that too.
Yeah.
Well,
Go ahead.
Oh, well, and I was thinking LinkedIn, for the most part, contains almost all the information that you're going to put in this, and so that may be extraneous to put a link to LinkedIn when it's going to have your job experience and your school experience and
But you're
what kind of like school projects or like class projects?
No, I've done internship projects like websites, like design.
So what you're saying is you want to link it through LinkedIn, like just to where that lives, or do you? But that's giving the also search committee one more step they have to do, which is not something you want to do. You want to make it really easy for them.
Can you link directly to the project
From your CV or resume?
That's
a better idea.
Do that.
Well, isn't it common that you guys link to your digital portfolio? That you don't. Well, you don't do it to the capstone, but after that point, when you have it, then you should be able to link to that.
But it's just the step of just presuming that it's all on LinkedIn anyway, and you're just going to link to LinkedIn. That's the step. That's a step potentially too far. Just bring it on up, make it relevant, make it part of this, because what that looks like is just, again, almost you're just sending it out to everybody. It shows that you're not really willing to bring it into the current job search.
Any other question?
I think you addressed this a little bit, but Allison asked if they don't specify how long should our resume be, 1 page or more?
If they don't, I've always given a CV, applying to public libraries, I just give them all the things I have. But
I think in the beginning, I would.
I would say 2 is a good is a good number for a resume unless you hear.
Yeah. Did we answer your question?
Sure.
I did have a question about the resume CV thing.
Mhm.
Would you recommend, well, it's kind of two questions. Would you recommend having both a resume and a CV ready and just, you know, so that you'll have whatever they're asking for, and if they ask for either or, send a CV?
You could.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind that your resume really is meant to just be your kind of a list of job experiences.
And your education.
And education.
Yeah.
So you could, and actually, on a serious job search, you almost really want to kind of create a bunch of folders for each place you're applying for, so that as you're customizing, you're creating, you know, a folder for this organization here, this organization here, and then you can go back and kind of pick and choose as you need when you're applying for the next one.
Oh, that brings up a very good point. Always save the job description, because when the postings close, they go down.
Yeah, that's right.
And the first job I got here in 2008, I couldn't find the job description, and by the time they called me, it had been about 4 months later, and I didn't remember applying here. So still they wanted to hire me, which was wonderful, but it was you know, it was shocking, and then I wasn't prepared with the skills they wanted or any of those documents. So that was, yeah.
Also, it might be good if you, what I did was kind of keep one super CV, listing everything, and then depending on what the job, what you could pick and choose from there, because what you don't want to do is kind of lose the memory of the skill or something like that, just because you didn't need it for that, and you don't necessarily want to send the whole kit and caboodle for everything.
Right.
So kind of keep up with what you're doing, with the skills you've had, with the experience, and then be able to pick and choose from it. So should you have both? Potentially. And you're looking for academic and public, and yeah, make sure you keep current and make, you know, it's a good idea.
And you're going to have that master CV, but each job is going to be a little like the cover letter. You may want to rearrange materials to focus on, okay, here's all the experience I had in archives versus libraries, or here's all the experience I had working with children versus working in public libraries, and you're going to maybe want to focus your CV around those things, or your resume as well. So other things to think about, margins, you already mentioned, no teeny tiny fonts. We're all going blind, that's why we all wear glasses.
And don't just move your margins through. It's like little bitty things, the margins are this big. It's like, we know what you're doing.
Yeah. So, you know, it's okay to add a little bit of length to it. Colors or graphics, that's okay if you're applying to a marketing position, but that's not really our focus. So,
professional is the key word here. Don't be kooky or cute. It's just not the
GPAs, you got a degree, and that is wonderful, and now that you have that degree, having your GPA on there is not important. But having your education at the top is very important, because again, that ALA accredited degree is what they're looking for. They want to see that at the top of your resume, so putting that first.
I would have another opinion. If you're just out of school and you're really proud of your GPA, if you've got like what do you think, 3.8 to 4.0, I don't know, that's going to be something. Do you think that for your first job, then not anything?
No.
You got the degree.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I don't hold it against anybody when
well, I don't hold it against people, but
I was very proud of her.
Yeah, she did very well. Your current contact information, this is important as you transition out of school, because you have an email address here, and that's going to go away. So if you're using your school email address, yeah, make sure that you have your current contact information on there, as well as a very professional email address, so you're not like hotpants24 at yahoo.com, right?
That's right, Tori got it.
So, yeah.
So, but I know there's a question, but just to go back to the education part, what I've been noticing lately is that people are bearing the education at the end of their CV or resume. Do not do that. It's got to go at the top. And if you have not graduated yet, you need to say expected date of graduation.
And months.
Because some people may be hiring in June, and if you're going to graduate in May, that's great. If you're going to graduate in August, they may still like you, and they still may hire you, but they're going to want to know that it's a firm date that you're graduating.
Right.
You can't put it at the bottom, because search committees they have a checklist. and they're going to go through. And if you have not graduated and you do not have that degree, and that's the expectation, you're going to have to either justify it or you're going to just not apply for that job.
Right. That was really hard, even in this recent study that Mike and I both on. Trying to search for your education is a bad idea. Don't give them anything else to do, and also make sure not only the date, the year you're going to graduate, but the month. Because in our scenario, we wanted someone to be coming in the fall. They had to have a degree by August or September. So basically, when they did enlist, when it was just a year, it could be graduating anywhere within there. So be sure you put the month and year that you're expected to graduate. It's really vital.
Any questions?
Darlena asked if you were still in school but not yet graduating. How do you?
Yes. Okay. Cool. Yeah.
I have a question about, might be a silly question, but email addresses, if it's your maiden name, do you need to get a new email address? Like, will that be confusing?
I think that's very common. Don't you? I feel it's obvious that some.
It falls into the category of it's helpful. It's not required or it's not bad, but it might be helpful.
Yeah.
I want to go back to the email. There is Noah on?
Yeah, Noah?
He
should be.
Noah, no, he's actually at a job hiring, hiring committee.
Okay. He's up there.
He's on the search committee when we're interviewing today.
Now, I know there's been discussion about how long the student emails last. That's what I was going to see. Y'all might ask about that.
I think it's 6 months.
It's supposed to be, it goes until, like, if you graduate in May, it's supposed to expire the beginning of the spring semester the next year. But it doesn't, they'll just cut it off whenever, because mine from undergrad cut off in, like, the beginning of December, and I lost a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, just go ahead and switch over immediately. It's not worth it.
IPS has a website that I'm going to link to here, but if you just Google IPS UNCG email account expiration, it'll come right up.
And that's another good resource to have on your LISSA resource page to help people out. Yeah. Also, if you change anything mid-search and you notice you're moving along, let people know, because remember we had some problems getting a hold of someone who I called and the numbers were out of order. Yeah. So I had to email and go, what is your current? And that's something that you shouldn't have to do.
Mm-hmm. Non-related work experience. What did we mean by that when we stated such a thing?
Well, and maybe like non-library experience. So there's a place for it.
Yeah. And we can talk about organizing that.
We were thinking more like library experience and then relevant work experience that may tie in with it. So it may fit in with the employment gap, but if you were, so for example, I don't know, I taught before I went into libraries, so I put that in because I was applying for an academic library position. In other places, they may not care, and I took that off my CV.
But that's a trend I'm seeing in some of the resumes, is that it's and it may be just what everybody's getting off of Google. It's all done chronologically, whether you're working at part-time at Chick-fil-A, or you're working at or you worked at a library last year, but now you're not. You need to, if you're looking for a library job, that is not going to go at the top. And what I'm not saying is, like, for example, I made that up, but Chick-fil-A it may be very important. You may run the cash register. You may manage people, which shows management talent. There may be a lot of things you want to include there, but it shouldn't be the first thing you have listed just because you're doing it right now. Okay, that needs to be, so you potentially have library experience or archive experience, related work experience, and then other. And that can go under other, but bring out, if you have a skill that you want to talk about, you can say, at my current job at Chick-fil-A, I handle the money, I do the scheduling, and I manage 3 full-time workers. That shows right there that you are currently, right now, even though it's in the library, you're demonstrating skills that I can use.
Joy asked, what about those of us who have had a lot of jobs? Leaving some out leaves employment gaps, but putting everything in makes the CV really long. How should we handle this?
That's a great question.
Well, also depends on.
I'm sorry to tack on to Joy. Like, if we had a lot of positions that make us look like for me, I feel like I look flaky because a lot of my positions didn't last long, but they gave me valuable experience. Didn't last long because I was an undergrad and I was doing things that they had me in those positions and they knew I wasn't going to last long. to like
Yeah.
tack on to Joy's question.
Well, and those are some things to talk about in your cover letter. Like, I worked short projects that were need-based projects. You
Are they
know.
library related or not? I think that matters too.
Yeah.
If it's in your field, that may be one thing that you might want to include. If things that it was not necessarily, then be a little choosier.
And
As things age out too,
Yeah.
you know, after 5 or 7 years, if you worked at, well, it doesn't matter, wherever
If
you
you're
work.
like a camp counselor in high school, or
Right.
you do, or
Yes.
like a temp job, you know, a temp job in college or something like that. If it relates to what you're doing, if it shows a skill, that's great. But at a certain point, you can just leave all that behind.
And I know that's hard
You'll have
because
your own.
yeah.
you know, you work really hard in these early things, these early jobs. I heard like a little with the camp counselor.
Yeah.
I saw the big lip come
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
I know it's really hard to part with some of these things
Yeah.
that meant a lot at the time. But think about it. You just used that to build up to where you are now.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know, so it worked. It was effective when you needed it, but now you need to build other skills that you bring out. So I know that's really hard, but it's fun.
Yeah, we're gonna have to keep moving, but I also, what was I gonna say about that? At a certain point, you don't want to, like, if you've been working for 25 years, you don't need to list all 25 years of your work experience. Is it like no more than 10? And that's hard to let go of too.
But you can keep them on this kind of super CV. So later on, when you do, 20 years later, when you apply to be the head of a camp,
You got it.
You can say, you know what, I had this experience. I have shown an interest in this since my camp days and whatever. You know,
Okay.
so keep it around. It doesn't, but just use it judiciously.
I will say, I just had to apply to a school job a couple weeks ago, and they wanted like the last 15 years of my work history everywhere I'd ever worked. Like I had to put in every summer job I had in high school. So
It's good to know all of those and have
keep
all
it
of
around
that.
just in case.
So I was like, where did I work in 2007?
Yeah.
Maybe it was for
I guess
background.
so.
Yeah,
That's-
it
that's-
probably
that's
sounds like a
what-
background check thing.
Make sure you're not a criminal.
Even if you think it's not relevant, maybe just,
Yeah.
now I know, keep it asking.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Michelle had a follow-up question concerning how far back you should go in terms of your employment history. She was wondering if, is this a time when a LinkedIn link is appropriate so that if people are interested in knowing more about your history? And Joy also had a follow-up. She's not sure how to handle the gaps, these jobs that drift in with the current job track on a resume. So she has a long history, and she's afraid if she takes some things out that aren't quite as relative, it'll leave gaps in her.
Well, I'm not saying take them out. It's a matter of kind of organizing them and prioritizing the library positions, but also, yeah, we don't want to show gaps. Like, you don't want to take jobs off that you are either currently working at or you worked at for a long time that are outside of the field. It's a matter of organization.
So would you recommend like having a section for related work experiences and
Other.
Yeah, so it's library/archives. It's related, and then other.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think, by the nature of the beast, we all tend to be very thorough being library. So don't let thoroughness stand in the way of being, of being smart about what you don't want to just do it because you can. Especially those others, use those.
Yeah.
Well, it becomes a judgment call, because you don't want something that's too big that someone's not going to read it, but you want to get all the relevant information out there. So even if you had a lot of different items, I'll say, whether it's jobs or projects or something like that, you can put a block at the end that says, for a more detailed view of experiences over 5 years old, please request that, or we'll be glad to provide it, or something like that.
Because what they really want to know is what you're applying for, what you're applying for. So that
They
information.
want to make sure you're not a criminal.
Yeah,
Or
it's
specific,
part of the-
or skills.
Part of the hook. You want the hook part, and then they can get the details
We
later.
should go on.
Oh, got a question. Sorry.
Let's go to the next slide. Let's see what.
Ashley asked, where should you include important events you've attended on your resume? Say you've attended the National Library Legislative Day with DC and you thought it was good advocacy.
Okay. So some of the things I've listed on here are ways to kind of group some of your material or your experience on your CV. So obviously you're putting your education up there at the top. Right now, continuing education, I used to put a little bit of relevant coursework in mine just as I was getting my first job, so people knew that I was taking, classes that pertain to it. But like I said, archival experience, relevant experience, library experience first, other work experience, volunteer. There are some ways to kind of smush some of those around too, so that
and for that specific question she just asked, and maybe because Mike and I do that, where I would put that advocacy, because it is important, and instead of burying it someplace under library experience, I might put another title, library advocacy, because you don't want to lose it. It is related to libraries, and I would put it there because it's something that you may want to talk about. It shows you're passionate in your field. It shows that you're committed to the causes. So,
and that you're active.
Yes.
That you're doing something more than just sitting on a committee or something.
So specifically to that, that's exactly where I would put it, right under library experience.
Professional association / service, that's something, where you can put that you were on LISSA or you were an officer, that you're on these professional organizations, so that people know that you're involved in the profession.
You're more than just paying your dues and walking away.
We've got literally 3 minutes left, but
Keep going.
let's see what we can get. It lost itself. Stop it. Okay. So this is just a quick example of mine, and I list dates, I list relevant experience, and again, there was that link in there that says I worked on this. Here's the direct link to that project, so that people can.
Okay, so notice that we do separations by capitalizing, bolding, putting lines. Those are all good ways to separate it. Y'all always put your title first. It doesn't, it matters where, I guess you get your degree, but basically, or your job, but say if you are a librarian, say librarian or media specialist. That should be the first thing as your title. Then where? Okay, same thing with a,
Except I had it work.
Oh, man.
How did I get a job?
Also, if you have, before you put what school you graduated, so if you're getting an MLIS from UNC-G, the first thing you say is Master in Library and Information Services, comma, UNC-G, comma, you know what I mean? That's what you need to, that's how it needs to go. So put your title first and put your degree first, okay?
Okay.
There are style guides out there, and I think the important thing about a style guide is to help keep you consistent.
Oh yeah. If you're going to do one thing, do it the whole way through. So don't start flipping your job description with where it's located or putting dates in a different place, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Well, why don't we go? References in somebody current, if you can. And again, correct contact information. Faculty are good, but not all faculty. We want somebody who's supervised you in an actual work situation. So I know that it may not necessarily be library work, but having a supervisor, somebody. Let's see. Oh yeah, please let us know that you're using us as references, and where you're applying, and provide a job description. I had someone who, it took her a little while to get a job, but every single job she was applying for, here's the job description, here's my current CV, so I was prepared when they called me to ask for a reference. I knew what she was currently doing and refreshed me on what she had been doing for me 2 years ago when she worked.
Yes, you never put somebody that you've not contacted on your reference list, ever, ever. And especially, I mean, I'm still getting people that are getting calls for people that I haven't worked with in 5 years who are I'm still on their, number one on their reference list. I mean, what does that mean? And I've not heard from that person since. Now, in some cases, when I keep up with people and I know what they've been doing, I can certainly speak to how, what happened with me. But if I have no idea what they've done since they left my door, if they have not told me I'm still on there, it's really not good.
Doesn't put us in a good mood about giving a good reference at that point. So obviously, let people know.
And they might sense that.
Right, and have more than 3 references, so you can switch people out depending on the job and what the focus is, and then again, make sure that those references know.
You don't want to burn out your references either. So you want to have at least 5 references, and so you can switch them around.
Especially if it involves actually writing a reference letter, which is very time consuming.
Since getting a library job can sometimes be a little difficult, and you have to apply to multiple places in an effort to not
be annoying, you know, that type of thing. Could you possibly send maybe like a general email to all of your references, like probably a blind carbon copy, and just say, you know, I'm applying for library positions right now. You know, here's the type of job I'm looking for. That way you're not sending like emails.
I had someone who did it sort of on even on a weekly basis. She'd be like, here are the 3 jobs I applied for this week. Here are all the job descriptions. I would rather know, and then send an updated CV whenever you update your CV.
I would still like, hi Kathleen, I hope you're doing well.
You know, I mean, yeah. I mean, I know.
I was like, aw,
That's great. I am doing well.
Because at some point, you know, it's taking my time. I want to know that there's a personal connection. And if you just obviously blind copy me, it's like I feel about as processed as I'm being.
Yeah. Let's see. I don't even know what we have next, but okay. So we have interview tips and things, and I don't know that we have it all time for it unless people really want to stick around.
Would it be possible to send me the PowerPoint?
We don't.
And then I can pass it along
Well, or whatever you want to do, Jim. Just a few things, though. Y'all, really, this is important. We don't have a huge time, but there's really things you do, like don't overshare. Don't do things like just take a look at what we've listed.
Mm-hmm. So I'll quickly go through them. You're often going to have phone interviews. You need to make sure you know about the place that you're applying to. Anticipate questions. That's really important. You know, have these written down and have your answers written down in front of you. Like, you know, they're going to ask you almost every single time why you want to work there. So have something. And then how you meet qualifications.
Quiet space, good backdrop. Yeah. Smile
when you're talking on the phone.
People can tell if you're smiling. It's really true. People can tell when you're smiling or when yeah.
Okay, my presentation has ended because
they timed you out.
I don't know. It just won't do it anymore.
Well, Mike's has a trusty printout.
Yes. Well,
I would say one thing about interviewing is refer back to your emotional intelligence skills and kind of be sensitive to how you're feeling, how you're reacting to the environment and to the other people, but also be sensitive to them, because to me a bad interview is someone who drones on and on and on to the point that I stop listening. Mm-hmm. and they're not paying attention to the fact that I stopped listening. Mm-hmm. And that makes it worse. So that's what I'm saying. Look for those kind of cues to help guide your conversation either on the phone or in person.
So for phone, I've talked to search firms, and search firms generally say you should answer for about 2 minutes, maybe 3 at the most, but usually about 2, because most people are going to tune out. So you want to be succinct, you don't want to wander, you want to be clear, and you want to answer the question that was put before you. And if that requires you to write the question down, do so, or just say, and I would always say, have I answered your question? Do you have another question?
A problem that we do have, though, is I think people are trying to interview the first time often don't say enough. I mean, I find that where it's like we have an hour to talk to you or a half an hour, and it's done in 10 minutes because you just said, yep, I've done that. And it was pretty cool.
Oh, and that reminds me. So phrases like absolutely, yes, I have, instead of yeah. I mean, when you're really you're interviewing a lot of people, and when you're really taking all this time, and then you get this and you're thinking, you know.
Or, you know, I need a little bit more time, so I usually, that's a good question. And then I have a moment to think about it.
Or thank you for, you know, there's even write down if you need a couple little transition phrases or some,
to think about it. Yeah.
Note them.
So just really quickly, so for phone or Skype, generally if it's a good search, they'll tell you have 12 questions and we have 30 minutes. So, and we expect to get through our 12 questions. So you can't blow it on the first one and then scramble for the last 11. So you may want to try to pace yourself a little, or you can even go back and say, you know what, the question that you asked me 2 questions ago, because they say, well, you got a little more time. Can I go back to that? I've just got another thing I want to raise with that. So I would really, you got to kind of gear yourself up, smile, project when you're on the phone.
Even on the phone, it's true.
And on Skype,
you've got all that, the quiet space, smile, all that. Make sure what's going on behind you if you're Skyping, because there's a lot of inappropriate stuff that people may have in their domestic spaces. So you want to just make sure that it looks sedate, clean, organized. They're not, you know.
And have questions for the committee or the group that's interviewing you, because if you don't have questions, it makes you seem uninterested. Like, obviously there are things you'd like to know, like, will I be working weekdays, or I mean, as simple as that, or, you know, what are your expectations for this person in the first couple months of being in this position? That's a good one.
Well, I've looked at your website, and then about anything.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me about this program that your school is offering. How could I be involved in that?
Yeah, this seems really innovative. And like, yes, we are, and how astute of you to notice.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm trying to click on the next. It doesn't want me to. That's really what it's telling me is.
What do we have?
Okay. No. After the interview, make sure you send a thank you note or email, any follow-up questions, or any way that you think that you need to clarify anything that you might.
Yeah, thank you emails are important, and for a campus visit, probably a note as well.
Yeah.
But you can use it after that interview. If you had just a total brain freeze and you're like, man, I bombed that question, that was like probably the most important question, you can say, you know, there are a couple things, we ran out of time, there are a couple things I want to address, and this is why I think I'm really a really good fit for your organization. Here's what I think. Don't go on, it's not a manifesto, just like 2 sentences, but at least you've hit your points, and it's clear that you're really interested in this position, and you want to sort of answer their question.
Was there another? I saw something come through.
We have 3 questions.
Oh, okay.
Okay, let's try to get through this.
Okay. Yeah. So if you do an in-person interview, make sure that you're wearing professional clothes.
Comfortable shoes.
Comfortable shoes. You're going to be marched around, usually touring places. Even if it's a school, you may be walking to school. If it's a public library, they're going to take you up and down stairs. If you're on campus, you're going to be probably walking around campus. So be as comfortably and professionally dressed as you can be. If you have a presentation, make sure that you're practicing, that you know your time, that you're prepared. And
for Skype interviews, you've got to dress professionally too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Honestly, you really do.
Sometimes I only dress professionally from the waist.
That's fine. I don't need to know, but that's
wear
totally
sweatpants. But and again, make sure you're there on time, that you're maintaining eye contact, that you that you bring water. Because it can be, if you're talking all the time, nice to have something to make sure you're not going to just fade.
And bring a copy of your resume, because if you need to refer to something that you can't quite remember because you're nervous or it's a long day, it's something for you to refer to.
Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're going to be eating with your interviewers, and that's also part of the interview. It's more of a social interaction, but
it is part of the interview.
It is part of the interview, so don't overshare about things, but also be interested. Like, I usually start with, I've got a couple cats. Let me tell you about my cats. Everybody wants to hear about my cats.
In order appropriately.
Yeah.
Sometimes spaghetti is not the best thing
to
have while you're at lunch.
And again, make sure that you're sending if it's in person, probably a thank you note. Again, expressing your interest and asking them. You can also ask them about next steps in the process. And we talk about over following up. I mean, sometimes the process takes a long time. It's got to go back to HR, and it's got to go through a committee. It just takes a long time. So you can follow up, but don't follow up every day.
And some of it's awkward because now I've noticed that nowadays that basically you can apply and never hear from someone again. They won't tell you they've gotten it. They won't tell you if you've been you just kind of disappear off the radar. And I think that seems to be a trend from what I hear.
Well, a lot of HR departments have gone to these systems, and so they won't let you go outside the system, and you really don't know anything until they click a button at the very end, and everyone they send out the mass knows.
Like,
so that could be like 9 months later, you get this email that, well, we filled the position, thanks for applying. Well, that was 9 months ago.
Right.
You
may have a job by then.
So when you ask for when you say, like, thank you very much, it was really good, I'm very interested in the position, what are the next steps? and say, what is the expected timeline? And then you can say, you know, when would you be letting people know? Not when are you going to let me know next week, but what is the expected timeline? So then at least you can take a deep breath and then ask. The other question I would be is, if I have any other follow-up questions, who should I be contacting? Is it the head of a search committee, the HR person? Who would be the appropriate person if I have a question?
A lot of online cover letters suggest that you say, I will be calling you Wednesday of next week to follow up on this. You're like, Wednesday of next week? We can talk about it. Like I can't find Mike anytime. You know, that's not a good idea to just presume that you're going to call. Pick a day.
We feel like we're being hunted.
Right. And more than not, we may just really not know. It's on we're trying the best on our timeline. So don't necessarily let people tell people that they're going to randomly call in the next couple of weeks.
Every other day is all I know from you. And then we talked a little bit about this, about marketing yourself and volunteering, you know, taking workshops. There are a lot of free workshops through like the state library, and that continuing education makes you more marketable.
Network.
And of course, it's, you know, thinking about whether relocation is something you want to do or if you're here, and then that may influence what types of library jobs you talk about this in the beginning.
And it's really great. We've got such a great program. I mean, there's not a week I don't go visit somebody, or I walk in. I was at L.I.S. County last week, and two librarians came up and talked to me, and they both graduated from this program. So you can't swing a cat without hitting someone who's graduated from this program. And it's great. It gives you this great network all over the state, and you may not even know that connection, but it really quickly you figure out that they have gone to the school too. So you've got an automatic connection, and then you can just say, "Look, I'm kind of looking around right now. Do you know what jobs are y'all looking?" I mean, it's all of a sudden you've got a connection. Ask.
Okay, so I know there were a lot of questions online that came through.
Yes. So I'll start with Darlena. Darlena had two questions. I think for state jobs in North Carolina, in order to calculate your years of experience to see what salary grade you may qualify for or salary you may be offered, the more experience you let, the better off you are in your application. Is this correct?
I wish I was Calvin. Yeah, I was going to say, Mike, do you?
Say that again. In terms of money, you talking about?
Mm-hmm.
I think for state jobs in North Carolina, in order to calculate your years of experience to see what salary grade you may qualify for or salary you may be offered, the more experience you list, the better off on your application. This was in reference to when you are, like, how far back should you go on when listing your experience?
Well, probably the best thing to know about that, though, is there's a range, and first of all, especially for a state or county position, that whatever was posted, they cannot offer more than that range. So if the top of the range posted is not enough for you, then you need to know that up front, that you're not going to get offered more than that. The other thing is it's typically not calculated that way exactly, especially for librarian positions. It is for the salaried positions more. Mm-hmm. But for the librarians, there's a lot more leeway in terms of being able to offer the salary. So, yes, you do want to demonstrate years of experience, but it's not always about the number of years as much as it is the amount of experience that meets those qualifications that they're asking for and required.
And the range is usually negotiable after you get the offer. It's not something to bring up in your first interview.
Up to that top point.
Yeah, up to the top point, right?
Yeah.
But between the range, it's then you can talk about it. Like, I really have this experience. I really think that this would get me up toward the top of the range.
But yeah, you're not sitting in your interview going, I'm only going to take 43,000.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Darlena also asked, you have all worded the questions to ask and polite phrases to use. Is there a handy list of these items?
I don't know that there's specifically one out there, is there?
There's probably, you could probably Google some resume or interview etiquette type things and get some stuff like that. I mean, once again, that might be something that would be good for you guys to work on in terms of putting together something specifically for LISSA. But
and y'all can do practice. I have practice interview. I mean, just it would be good to do any kind of practice. We
And
usually do
mock
some
interviews
practice
with people on the
with our
phone.
students and stuff. We've done mock interviews, and
Like-
sometimes that helps. But also pick things that are natural to you. If you don't say, you know, golly, that's great. Don't give yourself
That's not
a new
your
catchphrase. Or, you know,
Be you.
be you. So it just
Be you on a professional
you know,
level.
remind yourself to be to be professional. So, you know, maybe yes instead of yeah, or absolutely, or you know, something like that.
Oh, absolutely is one of mine. Yeah, I go to the
It
absolutely.
keeps the energy up, and again, it kind of brings you back from any kind of little catchphrases that you may have developed along the way, which
Like, that's magical.
that's magic.
Joy asked, how would you handle having multiple positions at the same library over several years? Do you combine them or make them completely separate?
We both, Kathleen and I did too. I separate them
Me too.
and list them as you would completely separate jobs and make sure you're clarifying your different responsibilities in each position.
Again, lead with your title.
Yeah, so the promotional aspect
Right.
of it.
And explain that in your cover letter. So that's where you explain your cover letter. I worked here for, 7 years as a staff member doing that, and, then you...
I've had increasing responsibilities
Right.
and have grown and moved into new positions.
After my last 10 years at this library, I did this. So that can just be that explanation can be part of your cover letter.
Lisa asked, I've heard that at one university they will not hire you if you do not send a paper thank you note. Is this
Wow, that's
Southern
snooty.
University.
That's Southern. That's a very Southern.
Southern University.
That would be an institution-specific quirk.
And I haven't heard that, but
You do that in the state,
yeah.
It's certainly nice, frankly, because again, we spend so much time on search committees. It's nice to get a thank you note. It's just kind of nice.
Or
Or
even
email.
just a day-long interview at somebody's institution. They've gone through the efforts, so it's nice.
Michelle, this is the last question I have at this point. Michelle asked, what's the best way to share workshops and other professional development on the resume, during the interview?
I would put some of that. I used to put a lot of that on my resume when I was first looking for a position under continuing education. So I would put education, and then I would put continuing education, because this is you continuing to learn in your field.
Or workshops in professional development, something like that.
Sure.
Don't overlist, but and there may be something that comes up in the interview, something like that. Then slide it in there.
Yeah, so both is the answer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions online?
Sorry we kept you guys long.
Yeah.
We have some cover letters or resumes, and I think for the online folks, we were gonna contact.
Yeah. So if y'all
Them?
if y'all send in your resumes or CVs and y'all are online right now, we'll have to get with you by phone. Okay.
Or email.
Email. Probably start with email.
I probably will do phone.
Kathleen, I know I've sent you the emails of everyone who's attending online. Would you like me to send that in a more formalized spreadsheet?
Yeah, that would probably be easier. I have it in here, but that would who knows who actually got here and what.
And if there's anyone who still wants to send in a CV, a resume, and have us look at it, we do that a lot. We like it.
I'm putting Lissa's email in there, so anybody that
Okay.
has it but would like to, they can send it to us and I'll pass it on directly.
I think, it's great to have. I wish someone had looked at my cover letter and resume, because it was not cool the first couple times. And, you don't know unless somebody looks at it and gives you some feedback.
Okay.
Sure, absolutely. And do you have like a...
So are you
Sure.
I don't really have anything to do with
Absolutely.
Janae
Yeah.
at Score.
Well, I think
through the day, and I
that's
did that.
scary,
So
because
I
you
don't
just
think
get
that
a...
I'm
And
gonna
absolutely,
see
you
her
send it to us.
the presentation at 3. Or,
What do you guys think about like this?
she's got a, I'll try to
It's almost 1:30.
The objectives and summaries that people put at the top. No. Oh, we never mentioned that, but no, don't do that. Don't put an objective at the top of your CV. Don't put a summary.
That's a good thing. Is everybody still online?
Yeah.
Okay, if you are, that is another thing that we see trends in, and maybe because people are picking it up from Google things, there's really no reason to put
Because you're going to address those things in your cover letter.
Objectives, or if you're
Your objective is to get a job.
yeah, if you're applying to be a teacher and you waste the space at the top of your resume to say, my goal is to be a really good teacher, to be an effective, teacher. We hope so, because that's what you're, to a certain degree that's presumed. Don't waste your space.
Yeah.
And then, so I graduated my undergrad in 2016.
Mhm.
Should I thought about it, but I haven't done it. Like, adding anything under my education about that with my written skill sets, anything like that. I've got a degree in English, so should I address any of that, or just?
You got a Bachelor's of Arts, concentration in English. What date did you graduate?
If there was a particular award, or you were like
A really big award.
But I guess I was like 5 F something, alpha, beta, if you were in an honor society or something, you could list that
For your
underneath
first job.
it. Yeah.
Then go ahead and drop.
Yeah, but that, I mean, unlisted forever. No. And of course, we're going to give you some feedback, but we're not the be all and end all. You have to make it your own, and definitely.
But just be professional again. Try not to be cute on your resume with like little flourishes. Keep everything pretty simple, professional, and list your education first, please.
Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Go ahead and stop the recording, everyone, so
Okay.
you can look for this on YouTube later.
So I don't know who we have that are here.
Sure.
We've had lots of